Inconsistent piling.
Yeah.
This was your idea, so why don't you explain it?
So the idea was going to be sometimes when your house is an L shape, right? This is my idea behind this.
I knew you had a reason. That's why.
Yeah, you fasten the ledger to your house on say the north wall, and then again traveling out on the west wall. People will often fasten to the house on that point.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should, because I think it creates a bit of an awkward, I'm going to call it a pinch point, even though it's not really a pinch point. But if the deck is going to shift or move and needs to be adjusted, this happens because people put piles in, they think their piles are deep enough. It turns out that it's not deep enough, and the deck still moves around a little bit.
Yep.
And so if you fasten on 2 axes, is that a word? Does that work?
Axi.
Axes. So if you fasten
Axums.
on both of them, then you end up with this awkward little spot where you think the deck is supported, but it's not. And then it kind of twists and the pile isn't supporting it anymore. And now I have seen this where you walk out to a house and there's a 4x4 or a 6x6 and it's legit dangling off of the beam and has no support underneath of it.
Right.
Because the deck is kind of hanging off of a part of the house where it's not supposed to be hanging from, really. So
Yeah.
that was it. That was my idea behind that.
Yeah. And the reason I had called it inconsistent piling is because sometimes because I didn't know what else to call it. I didn't know what we were trying to make that known as. But the other problem you see sometimes is extensions on decks, or something was added, or maybe the home builder poured 2 piles, but they want to go bigger with the deck, so you pour a third one, and it's like, if you don't make sure those are all the proper depth, then they move differently, and then the same kind of thing can happen. That middle one ends up jacked up or something because your piles aren't poured consistently and whatever else. So there's that can happen as well. So
yeah,
and then that causes an issue. Like if that one of those things is floating and not attached anymore.
Yep.
That's a major tension on that deck that it's just hanging off 2 points in the house or whatever else.
Yeah.
Let's answer this question from the Instagram Marspet. I don't know if that's how I'm supposed to say that, but I wonder why so many of you guys over in America use this tape on the beams. For me, it seems like you then trap the water on top of the tape, forces the water to dry out the hardest way up.
Yeah, so I think I know what he's getting at, because it's like the idea of water
When
is
water
that
dries,
it should just
evaporate and go up. Isn't that the easiest way for it to go?
That's a pretty natural way, is it goes to the clouds.
Okay.
Right? It evaporates.
Yeah.
But I think
Unless you
I
have a
understand.
well.
I understand what he's saying, right? It's like water wants to run down to the ground, and then that's where the fastest way for water to dry off of things is to run off of it and then dry.
Or not let it get there in the first place.
Right. And so I think where the idea of the tape is that we're trying to keep it out of the sandwiched area where it takes a lot longer to get down through the lumber. Yeah. So it actually kind of gets into the lumber and rots it. If you provide a hard surface for it to sit on, it dries faster on top of the tape than it does out of the lumber, because it absorbs into the lumber as opposed to being resting on top of a hard surface that it can't absorb into.
Right.
Fastest way for it to dry out is to be on a surface that it can absorb into.
Right.
That's my thought.
Yeah, to never let it get wet in the first place. That's the point of the tape.
The trick for sure would be to allow, I think some people tape the beam all the way around, and I don't know that I would agree with that. I would only ever tape the top of a beam, because if you, for some reason, did get moisture into the beam, I would want to make sure that it had a way out, which would be the bottom or side.
Right. You've seen some guys, and we did this with the Build Love project a couple of years ago, where the beams are going to be buried. They're going to be in the dirt.
It's a little bit different.
Then you've got to kind of wrap it up to make sure that it's not sitting wet all the time again. But
that's
the point in America and Canada of the tape is not, it's to make sure the water doesn't get there in the first place, so the drying out process is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And you're putting it in areas where water can't dry out fast enough.
Correct.
So that it causes problems because it stays stagnant in there. And so it's like, well, how do we prevent that? You can't make it dry faster, but you can stop the water from getting there in the first place. That's the whole point. So that's the point of the tapes there. But you trap it between the beam and the deck. So I think he might be referring to joists, maybe. So
that's true.
But between the top of the joist and the deck, yes, you trap it there. But that's why I'm not a huge fan of taping joists when you're using lumber, like wood for decking.
Yes.
But if you're using composite or PVC or plastic decking that's impervious to moisture, it doesn't matter that it's going to stay wet, then it's not hurting that.
Yeah, if it's composite that you're Yeah, that's it. You did it already. I don't need to go on about that.
Right.
I agree with you.
But I just had a guy the other day
If it's cedar
that
or
came in, he's doing a cedar deck.
pressure
He's like,
treated,
should
so-
I be taping all my joists? And I was like, I don't
think
know about
so.
that, because the theory behind how the tape works would then also suggest that your cedar deck boards are going to rot out faster if you do that.
because you have to
Because you're
get
letting
all
it
of-
take all the moisture.
all of the moisture. It'd be okay to share some of the moisture between the joist and the cedar if you're going to.
Yeah.
So
So I told him, I was like, tape your beams, but maybe I wouldn't in that case.
Yep.
But if it's
that's pretty.
if you're
that's
throwing
pretty good
down
of you.
throwing down some AZEC on it, it's like, oh yeah, no, tape that. It's not, the water's not hurting the decking.
Can't.
And in fact, now your joists are taking all of the water, like you just said, and it's just like exasperating that even more. So more comments. TimberTech Garrett Prairie says the tape keeps moisture from getting trapped between the deck board and the joist. Correct. Marspet says, okay, with wood, I would not use it. Yep,
Yeah,
agreed.
agreed.
Carly Matheson says the tape actually repels water like wax on a car. You bet. And TimberTech Garrett again says, good with composite only. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're getting at there. It's like debatable whether you should be using that when it's a wood deck, but not super debatable when it's plastic decking.